Well, hello and welcome from our first ever podcast here in Covington, Kentucky. It is the Kenton County Playbook with Scott Borders and yours truly, Brian Blair.
Thank you very much.
Give it up
Thank
for
you.
Brian
Thank you.
Blair. And this is an opportunity we've waited 30 plus years to get involved in. Of course, when we first met, nobody was really doing podcasts, so it didn't catch on with our generation until a little later. Brian and I first met back at Northern Kentucky University in the 90s, where we actually served together as the radio team for NKY athletics, which just, oh, by the way, happened the very first year we worked together, happened to go to a national championship.
They were really good that year. They had a good year before you came on, and you were the key. I mean, we went to the national title,
that's right.
The national title game.
They stopped short in the regional
The year
tournament
before.
back then. Of course, in Division II, it's the Elite Eight that was big, and of course, NKU now Division I. So a lot of things have changed on campus from the days of Coach Kenny and some of those players that we will always fondly remember, and that, funny enough, have found themselves in several coaching jobs in and around the area, and one comes to mind in Region 9. Of course, you have Kevin Listerman coaching Highlands basketball, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about. We're going to give you a little preview today. We actually have some subject matter that came up. We're going to get to that in a little bit, but a little preview of the 9th region, which is out. It is set, that basketball tournament coming up. Some teams that didn't make it, the teams that actually did make it. And we're going to be able to talk about that a little bit tonight, because that's going to be what you really want to hear. And these are schools that Brian and I, for the most part, have had a chance to take a look at and see whether they pass the eye test. And then we will also get into some of the other regions around the state. And, Brian, I'm looking around. Of course, you always have the bigger city regions. You've got the 6th and 7th in Louisville. But let's be honest, the big region this year is going to be that 11th
Absolutely.
region.
Yeah.
And those Lexington teams, that is just power loaded. Whoever comes out of that will have gone through a buzzsaw in the regional, headed on to the state tournament. Of course, Kentucky's all about the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I mean, you got a potential matchup in the semifinals with Great Crossing and Bryan Station. I mean, two teams ranked in the top 25 in the state, with a potential championship game with Frederick Douglass, who's also in that top 25 in the state. So, and you go back to the 7th region, you got a first-round game between DuPont, Manual, and Mail. I mean, somebody who's in the top 10 in the state is going to be gone in the first round of that 7th region tournament. And then one of those two teams, more than likely, would play the number 1 team in the state, depending on what polls you look at, St. X out of Louisville. And that region is packed and stacked,
really
as you
is.
say. I mean, it's really – but, you know, looking at the 9th region, and we're going to get into it more tonight, there's some really good teams in the 9th region too.
It's been a very competitive 9th region. It plans on being a wide-open tournament and has a little bit of drama going into the tournament we'll get into. But the first thing I wanted to do, Brian, so I took a composite of a lot of the polls that are out there, the end-of-season polls. These would be mostly coming out after the district tournaments. District tournaments are kind of a faux way, a fake way of finding out who's really good, because the runner-up and the district champion makes it. I'm not saying it's not competitive. It is, but things often change by the time you reach the regional. But what we're going to do, we're going to start from the bottom and work our way up and sort of talk what we can about some of these teams and what they bring to the table. So we will start with the number 25 team, a little drum roll. First of all, before we do that, we'll give you some of the teams that were receiving votes that did not make our top 25. A very good Henderson County team did not make the top 25. J-Town did not make the top 25, but were close. A local team, Simon Kenton, very close again, and a favorite in the 8th region, but did not make our top 10. And then, of course, you have Bell County, Harlan County, and here's one that surprises people, Louisville Male not making the top 25. So that's a little interesting. But for the 25th ranked team, it's a team we hear of quite often this time of year, the South Laurel Cardinals out of Region 13. They were basically second place in the region, and were 0-3 against other ranked teams on this list, but they did have a 23-8 record. So the South Laurel Cardinals. Now, Brian, 24, close to my heart, my alma mater, did make it. The Ballard Bruins, they only have a 19-10 record, but are actually 3-4 against top 25 competition.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. You look at some of those records can be a little bit deceiving because if you play in, again, the 7th region, the 11th region, you're playing other top 25 teams all year long. So that record, could definitely be deceiving. There could be some good teams out there with 18, 19 wins.
Right.
And then on the flip side, I hate to say this, but you could have some fraudulent teams.
And we'll go over
who
that.
have 23 and 24 wins who may not be as good as the 18-19 team win.
There are some out there, I think, that you're going to find out because we don't get a chance to see these teams that maybe only played one or two, maybe two or three games against the top 25 opponents. You have no idea going into the season who's going to be in the top 25, and it is very difficult because, let's be honest, a lot of voters in these polls don't actually see the teams. They're just kind of going by stats. Number 23 was kind of interesting. It is the North Oldham County Mustangs. North Oldham Mustangs, coached by a former University of Louisville player, by the way, David Levitch. They made it. They really dominated their series over South Oldham this year. They were 20-7, representing also a very competitive 8th region that Simon Kenton happens to be a part of, and they were only 3rd in that region.
Yeah, North Oldham is one of those teams that if you look, they're one of the favorites to win the 8th region. South Oldham, who's also in the poll that I have, they're there, and they're playing SK, Simon Kenton, in the first round. And they're on opposite sides of the bracket, so you would think whoever wins that South Oldham Simon Kenton game is going to get to the 8th region final and more or less play North Oldham.
Correct.
So it could be a district rematch game between North and South. But I've heard several folks, and because I teach at an 8th region school, who think that Simon Kenton is going to beat South Oldham. Their athleticism, they're a little more athletic, a little bigger size-wise. And so what I've heard around school talking to our coach and just some guys who play on our basketball team in Owen County, which one's better. A couple guys said they kind of leaned a little bit with Simon Kenton there.
And very interesting. Simon Kenton will have an opportunity in that. And you mentioned South Oldham. You'll actually see them a little higher, even in this particular poll, which is interesting because they lost the season series to North Oldham. All right, going for number 22 in the state, how about the Adair County Indians? I dare you to tell me where Adair County is. I wasn't sure myself. What I can tell you, they're in the 5th region, a 27-5 team. They were 2-2 against the top 25. North Oldham, by the way, 4-4. So 8 teams they played in the top 25. Some of those repeats, but a decent 4-4, 2-2 for Adair County. So they did get a chance to dip in to the top 25 and prove themselves. And then for the rounding out the first 5, we will have another Louisville team out of Region 6. The Pleasure Ridge Park Panthers, 23-4, but, Brian, and even though they're in second place in the 6th region, Pleasure Ridge Park is only 1-4 against the top 25.
Well, and again, you look at where they come from. I mean, you're playing some awesome competition every night out down there in that 6th and 7th region. So, you cannot take anybody for granted. And, the old cliche, you kind of throw the records out the window this time of the year. And it's really who's tournament tested, who's played some of those preseason Christmas type tournaments and gotten themselves really ready as the season, goes on. As this, some teams will play their last 3 or 4 games against really tough competition. Might only win 1 or 2 of those games, but they're getting ready for districts and region.
So just to recap, Pleasure Ridge Park, number 21, Adair County 22, North Oldham 23, Ballard 24, South Laurel 25. What really sticks out at you, no team had a winning record against the top 25, but all did have a record against the top 25, and none of those teams were in first place at the end of the season in their region. Moving on to the next 5, you'll like this one, Brian. This is a team we didn't get to see this year, but we've seen quite a bit in the past, have a good relationship with Coach Mike Walker, and that's the 20th ranked Lloyd Memorial Juggernauts. And they finally have taken E.J. Walker, maybe one of the state's biggest recruits next to Malachi Moreno at Great Crossing. They have finally taken E.J. Walker to that next level, to where he has been productive. And boy, Tony Blaker has just been fantastic for Lloyd. They are 24-6. The one thing in Region 9, they finished in second place. We'll go over who finished in first, but one thing, they are 1-6 against the top 25. So is that a team that the record may belie the talent? Because the talent's definitely there.
Well, I think, and I was going to say this later, but I'll say it right now. I think going into this 9th region tournament, they're the team with the most to prove, just simply because they've had talent the last 2 or 3 years, which is comparable to anybody in this region, but they've not made it to the finals. And so I think they're the team, and you look, and we're going to get into this more, but their first-round matchup against Ryle, that's a tough matchup.
It is.
And that could be the game of the first round in the 9th region. So I think Lloyd is super talented, but last year they got boat raced against Newport in the semifinals, and they haven't been to the finals since, I think, 1996.
And in a Newport with Kenny, who got hurt before they went to the state tournament, we want to remind you. But you're right. And what you said about Ryle's, 16-12 Ryle may be the toughest 16-12 in this part of the region, or in the region, because they've got Landon Lorms. They've got some players, DeGroff, who really can play hard, and it'll be interesting to see what they're able to do.
They're just in the same district with Cooper.
Yeah, they just happen to be there. All right, so that was Lloyd breaking in the top 20. Now, number 19, the South Oldham Dragons. So the Dragons do break in ahead of North Oldham. Some people will cry and complain about that. They are 26-5 overall out of Region 8, 2-4 against the top 25. So they definitely have earned their spot at number 19. A lot of people think a lot of that South Oldham team.
Yeah, I saw them play a half against Owen County, and the reason I only saw a half is because I left.
Done, yeah.
And the game was over. They got kids. I mean, they're probably out shooting right now somewhere. I mean, because that's what they do from the minute they walk in the gym. They're going to shoot the basketball all over the place. They've got kids who can make it from all over the place. Yeah. Got a little bit inside. But I think that's where, again, going back to what I said earlier, Simon Kenton, I think, has a little bit more inside and a little bit more athletic out top to put pressure on those shooters. So we'll see, but
we may check out the 8th region this year. You and I have talked about that before, and we've been to the 9th region tournament. I may have to check out the 8th region.
You got to come down to Henry County. It is. I mean, I've not been to all the other places around the state to watch region games. I obviously love Truist. It's a great place to watch a game. It's a great atmosphere.
It is.
But you go into Henry County and you are stepping into
tradition.
1950 it seems like, and it gets hot
where
in there.
Tournament games ought to be played.
It's and it's a great place. I mean, I was in there last night watching our girls play, and it's just a fun, neat place. Get a walk-in taco and some popcorn, and it's awesome.
All right, moving on. Let's go to number 18, another Louisville team. A shout-out to my buddy Kenny Ford, a proud graduate of Butler High School, the Bears of Butler High School. And Butler is always tough. Never a team you could ignore. They finished first in the 6th region over PRP, were 24-4, and an even-keeled 3-3 against top 25 opponents. That's a team you can never look away from, and right now the favorite to come out of that region and represent the state.
The only issue they would have would be PRP would be their potential semifinal game.
Yeah, so, the semifinal, correct.
So that could be one of those cases where the semifinal game is actually the championship game in some regard. So we'll see. And that is unfortunate, and it's why I kind of wish regions would go to a seeding where you would have, the 1 and the 2 perhaps on the, on the opposite side. But But that's also what's so special about Kentucky high school basketball is that you're not guaranteed, those kind of things.
Right.
And you get those goofy matchups sometimes where the two best teams maybe play in a semifinal game. But it just makes it so special and so exciting because, obviously you win, you move on, you lose, you go home. And it puts so much pressure on the kids, but so much fun when you're sitting there watching it.
All right, this next one is kind of interesting. We're going to have 3 teams in the top 25 that represent Region 4, starting with this team at number 17, the Kenton County Bulldogs. Now, Kenton County has one of the best records in the top 25. They are 28-2. That's called taking care of business. The problem is they haven't played a lot of the better teams in the 4th region, and in fact have only played one other top 25 team, and that was a game they lost. So this is one of those teams that you were talking about, Brian. They have a great record, but we're going to wait and see what they're going to be able to do on the court because there are higher-ranked teams with lesser records ahead of them, even in this poll, and a lot of people don't think they'll make it out of the region.
Well, I'm sure you're going to get to Warren Central here in a minute, and they're looking at playing Warren Central in Clinton County in a semifinal game.
Yes.
So one of those two teams is going to be gone. I know you're going to get to Bowling Green here probably as well, or maybe you are, maybe you aren't, because I have a different poll.
It's exciting. I'm telling you. You don't know.
But you were looking at this, and again, that 4th region a lot could be determined in that semifinal game, and it's kind of a put up, shut up kind of thing for Clinton County.
Yep. And what's interesting, this poll Brian was talking about, there are several sources out there, so I kind of did a conglomerate and just did some averages, and this is the Borders poll. The Borders composite.
I went with the KSR top 25.
And the KSR was definitely an influence.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is next? 16 comes Ashland Blazer and the Tomcats. Out in the Boyd County area, Ashland Blazer finishing a tough season, 20-7, but really were the first place team in Region 16, and they had a 1-4 record against opponents in the top 25, yet still a very tough team and could do some damage in the region. There are other teams in the 16th region that are competitive, but this is the only team that made the top 25 in the 16th region.
Yeah, and you never know, obviously, but being the only team that makes the top 25, you would have to say that they're the favorite going into that regional tournament. But again, I mean, you've got to go out and play the games, and obviously being that quote-unquote favorite, that the target's on your back, and everybody's going to try to take you down.
All right, so recapping, 16, the Ashland Blazer Tomcats at 20-7. Out of Region 16, the Clinton County Bulldogs out of Region 4 at 28-2. The Butler Bears out of Region 6, 24-4. The South Oldham Dragons out of Region 8, 26-5. And Lloyd Memorial, 24-6 out of Region 9. Moving on to the number 15th ranked team. So we're going into the top 15 now. We're going to start with the only team coming out of the 10th region to make the top 25 poll, and that's George Rogers Clark, the Cardinals of George Rogers Clark. A 25-5 season, 1-2 against the top 25, still a competitive team. They're usually right in the semifinals or finals of the region. They're always competitive and a tough out.
They are, and they're going to play Campbell County in the first round of the tournament, who's a team that could possibly be a dark horse.
I think 8 losses and darn near made this particular poll, too. Campbell County's certainly a threat, and that's where a lot of people locally are going to be looking at to see what they'll be able to do.
Yeah, and then that could be a great first-round game. And you mentioned it, GRC's only loss in the region came to Montgomery County in the district championship game.
A good Montgomery County.
And so Montgomery County could meet George Rogers Clark in a final, or if Campbell County wins that first game, don't be shocked to see Campbell County, Montgomery County, which would be on Montgomery County's home floor.
Very interesting. All right, so moving on to 14, here's where we bring back in Region 4. Bowling Green and the Purples, a very traditional program out in the western part of the state representing the 4th region. The Purples were 25-6. They were 2-3 versus the top 25. This is a team that can be very dangerous, and we've seen them go on Sweet 16 runs. We've seen them go on regional runs, a team to watch out for in that 4th region. And in fact, these really are the two favorites. The one I'm going to mention next, I'll go ahead and say, the Warren Central Dragons, also at 23-6. They're 3-2 against the top 25. And so those two teams, a lot of things similar about them. And even over Clinton County, you have to think it's going to be one of those two teams.
Yeah, again, Warren Central plays Clinton first round or a potential semifinal game. The winner of that's probably going to play Bowling Green in a final. And that could be, you can imagine Warren Central, Bowling Green in a region final.
Right.
I mean, and I think they play that, and you had to check me, I think they play that at Western.
I believe
it is. Diddle Arena.
Yeah, Diddle Arena.
That place will be packed for that game. A lot of purple in the
And those are big schools.
Yeah.
People don't understand how big Bowling Green and Warren Central, those are huge schools.
And Bowling Green's one of those teams, like you said, they seem like they're always in the mix. It's just a solid program down there, and even Warren Central seems like they've been around as well.
All right, now we're moving on to a 9th region team at number 12, and this might be a little of a surprise to you. So we've got a couple of 9th region teams that are going to go back-to-back here. At number 12 is going to be the Cooper Jaguars. A little bit of a surprise, 20-5, 2-3 against the top 25. So they'll have a better record than the team ahead of them, and we'll go over that a little bit. But keep in mind, Cooper, we're going to put a little asterisk on because we got a lot to go over with Cooper. And by the way, Cooper, one of the best teams, if not the best team in the 9th region, with one of the best players, if not the best player in the 9th region as well, and we'll kind of talk about him a little bit. But Cooper comes in at 12, and then we have the perennial favorite in Region 9 many years, and that's Covington Catholic, and the Colonels come in at 11 with a 23-8 record. But, Brian, you can attest to this. They play one of the toughest out-of-state schedules anywhere. So if you take away a lot of the out-of-state games, this is a very tough team. They only finished 3rd in the region, had a 1-4 record, so a little bit interesting. Had a 1-4 record. Usually they're very good against the top 25. A little off this year, but boy, that's gonna stoke that fire in Region 9 between those two teams, I'm sure.
Well, and we're gonna get into this more, but if you go back to last year, these two teams made the 9th region semis last year, and Cooper blitzed them.
They really did. A shock because that was a very good Covington Catholic team. Not that it wasn't a good Cooper team, but I think most of us expected a close game. We were kind of hoping for it.
And it wasn't.
And it was not.
It was not. And their only loss in the region this year to Cooper.
Interesting.
So that could be, you talk about a very juicy semifinal. Yep. That could be something.
All right, and so finally coming in, that rounds out 11-15. We'll go over it. The two Region 9 teams, Covington Catholic and Cooper, Warren Central at 13, Bowling Green at 14, George Rogers Clark at 15. And now we're on to the top 10. The top 10. And this is where it gets really interesting because we have only one team representing, for instance, Region 12. The second team, along with Adair County, to represent Region 5, however, comes in at number 10, and that's the Greene County Dragons. And you say, where's Greene County? It's another one of those counties. You wait till state tournament time, and you hear about them, and you may not hear about it the rest of the year anywhere. But this is a team who has played 3 top 25 teams. They're 1-2. But have a 23-3 record and have played well even in their losses this year. This could be a very interesting team also. I don't know much about them, haven't gotten a chance to see them play. But
do you think, though, that teams like that are okay with that? Like, we're okay that you don't really know who we are and you've not been talking about us all year? Because you go into it, and, yeah, you're top 10 in the state in different polls, but nobody really knows who you are. You have zero pressure. It's not like you're Great Crossing or St. X or Frederick Douglass or somebody like that who everybody's expecting.
1987, a team nobody heard of out of Manchester, Kentucky. Clay County, led by Richie Farmer, came in to a state tournament that was actually held in Louisville that year against the soon-to-be NBA star Allen Houston's Ballard Bruins and shocked them. Actually, that year it was in Rupp. I'm being reminded. That year it was in Rupp. It was in Louisville. The next year, same two teams played. So two years. But nobody had really heard. The other one that comes to mind is Pineville.
Okay.
Am I getting that right? Pineville. Is it? No. It wasn't Pineville.
I'm thinking about Shelby Valley when they beat
Shelby Valley with Justice.
They beat PRP in the final.
I believe so.
I think it was PRP in the final. Yeah, I was at that game.
And again, a team nobody really had on their radar until tournament time, and that's what's great about the Sweet 16. You just don't know.
Well, I'll be honest, that game, I remember being at that game. And I remember thinking, because we had been there for the semifinals that morning, and I remember my son was fairly young, and I remember saying, if this gets ugly, we'll just leave at halftime. And it got a little bit ugly, but on the Shelby Valley side.
I said they were a three-point shooting dynamic team and took it all the way to the state title that year. And this is another one of those teams in number 9, Danville Christian, the Warriors. And a really interesting team, 1-1 against top 25 opponents, 26-3, only team out of Region 12, finished first in Region 12, ready to do some damage in that region. And again, it's one of those schools that's somewhere between a parochial and a public school, so they can sort of develop players. So anytime you see the Christian moniker or the Catholic moniker on any of these teams, I'm always a little wary because, like I said, they usually can develop these kids.
They're extremely good. I did not see them play, but I kept up with them because they were in the they won the All-A, the boys All-A state tournament. Danville Christian's girls won it as well. So, yeah, I just don't know. I mean, I'm told they have a lot of talent, but how does it stack up against the bigger, more public school? We'll see. Are they the favorite to get out of that 12th? Yeah, probably. But we'll see. Like you said, it's one of those teams, again, that I can't say they're under the radar because they won the A, but I don't know how many people, in, say, Louisville, Lexington, the bigger cities pay attention to the A. And no offense,
they don't
to the A. But yeah, we'll see. I think you can put a little question mark by them and say, kind of show me what you got now. You're playing with, and I hate to say the big boys, but you're stepping up in class a little bit.
And single A teams have definitely won the state tournament in Kentucky. You get a Hoosier story every now and then.
Well, that and you go back to University Heights. They were a small school who went out and got guys to come there to play. You talk about Evangel a couple years ago that was really good, and they had like 50 kids in their school, and 10 of them played basketball.
So we're getting the feeder schools now. And it's just a fact of life we're all going to have to get used to. This is not one of them, Hal. This is the school. This next one at number 8, the school where you usually have your performing arts students go. DuPont Manual, the Crimsons, and they have a proud basketball tradition and are 25-5 in a tough 7th region, going 3-3 against the top 25. Don't turn your backs on that team. A lot of people feel like they know who's going to come out of the 7th region, and they're probably right. But this is a Manual team who won't make it easy.
As someone used to say on College Game Day, not so fast, my friend, because you never know with DuPont Manual. But could we get a DuPont Manual Bowling Green final, the Crimson against the Purple? That would be an incredible. That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
We'll talk about names. There's way too many dragons and panthers, by the way.
And bears, oh my.
Bears, oh my, yeah. A lot of colonels out there. A lot of bulldogs. And we're going to get a bulldog team at number 7. How about the Hazard Bulldogs out of Region 14 on this top 25, the only team representing Region 14. They won that region 27-2. But what a lot of people don't know, they were 2-1 against top 25 teams. They are for real. This is another school that people kind of overlook. They're a for real team, and they have earned their spot at number 7 in the state, Brian.
Man, is there anything better than Eastern Kentucky basketball? I mean, you talk about people who take pride down there in basketball.
Big UK area, too. It's just
crazy. And that'll be a fun region. But, yeah, Hazard's a team, again, one of those teams that may not get a lot of publicity just because of where they are, and you got so many Louisville and Lexington schools that kind of dominate this. But, yeah, watch out for Hazard. They could be a fun team to watch if they get out of the region, which they should.
All right, finally, our next team in this segment, number 6, representing the first region. In fact, our next two teams back-to-back will represent Region 1, the 28-3 Callaway County Lakers, 1-1 against the top 25, only 3 losses on the year, and had some battles with the next team. But we'll recap this. At 6, Callaway County out of Region 1, Hazard out of Region 14, DuPont Manual out of the 7th region, Danville out of the 12th region, Greene County out of the 5th region, and the number 5 team, Brian, is we're now into our top 5. These are the top 5 teams in the state. We expect big things from these teams. They represent only 3 regions, though. So not all of these guys are going to make it. So they represent only 3 regions. You would like to think at least 3 of these teams will be in the Sweet 16, but that remains to be seen. Number 5 out of Region 1, and that's the team that finished first in Region 1 at 27-2. The Marshall County Marshals. What's impressive about them, 3-1 against the top 25. This is a tough team. And they're going to have a battle on their hands with Callaway County. These are 2 teams worth their ranking. That'll be real interesting. I believe, we'll look at it in a few minutes, but I believe they're on the opposite sides in the region.
Yeah, they are.
And so
where do they play that region? I'm not sure. That would be interesting to see if it's at one of those
stuff.
I don't know if it's at one of those 2 schools. But yeah, that could be a heck of a final.
All right, and that brings us now to 3 teams, 2 through 4, 2, 3, and 4, all out of Region 11. When we say this is a front-loaded region, we aren't kidding. This is incredible. We're going to start at number 4, the Bryan Station Defenders, 24-6, 3-4 against the top 25, and they were the 3rd place team at the end of the season in the region. Boy, are they tough.
Yeah, that whole region stacked. I mean, you're going to get into the next 2 teams, but I mean, it's like the SEC of Kentucky high school basketball. And again, it's a shame only one of those teams is going to make it to. It's not the NCAA tournament where you get automatic bids. I mean, you've got to win your region to get out. And man, one of these 3 teams is going home.
Yeah, exactly. And it's hard to imagine that when you sit and see them all stacked together like this. And boy, have they gone to war with each other. And this is where in these top 3 positions, as the next teams come, where you really see good records against the top 25. It starts with the Frederick Douglass Broncos out of 11th region. They were the team that had the best record at the end of the season in the region. Or they were number 1 in the region and the best overall regional record. 23-4 on the year, but 8-3 against top 25 opponents, and played the other good teams in the 11th region well, would play anybody. They took on all takers around the state and finished with only 3 losses. 11 teams they played in this top 25, Brian. That's a pretty good record.
Yeah, and that's how you get yourself ready. And like you said, it's being willing to play anybody anywhere, as the old cliche goes. And you said it. I mean, they did it, and they backed it up, going 8-3.
Good dark horse team possibly to look at even in the state tournament, because they very easily could come out of that region. But the team that's going to be fighting them, and this is a team that excites a lot of people in the Commonwealth, the Great Crossing Warhawks. They are not a one-man team. Malachi Moreno, probably the best player in the state of Kentucky this year. Certainly the player most ready to put on the blue and white and play for the Wildcats of Kentucky next year. But at 6'11", a presence, but he's not the only player they have, and that's the point I'm trying to make. The Great Crossing Warriors, 28-4, but get this, 7-1 against the top 25. So again, not afraid to play anybody. Technically the second place team in the region, but only 1 loss to the top 25. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that was to Frederick Douglass.
It was. I believe you're correct.
So, that says, again, quite a bit about this 11th region and what a competitive region that has been. And that really, if you're just looking for good basketball over the regional tournaments, Brian and I have some vested interest in the 8th region and the 9th region since we live in this area. But that would be the region to watch this year, even over the 7th, even over the 6th, this 11th region. I think that will be a great tournament start to finish.
Yeah.
And there are teams in that tournament who are also very competitive who could sneak in there.
I mean, you talk about a potential semifinal, Great Crossing, Bryan Station. Wow. The winner of that potentially gets Frederick Douglass in a final. Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. And that – it's nothing beats going to the Sweet 16, obviously. But if you can't go to Lexington and go to Rupp, get tickets and go to those games because those will be, especially those semifinal games. A couple of those first-round games might get a little ugly because some of those teams are really good. But, yeah, get a ticket, get there early, and you're going to enjoy those.
That'll be interesting. Now, on to, finally, in the Borders composite rankings for the state of Kentucky coming into the regional tournaments, the number 1 team in the state. It's not going to surprise anybody. It is the St. Xavier Tigers, St. X out of Louisville. 28-2 is what they finished the year, and I think the 2 losses were to teams out of state, have not lost to a team in state. In fact, 6-0 against the top 25. The only undefeated team against the top 25. They won the 7th region in the regular season. They are heavy favorites not only in the region, but also in the state tournament, and there's a couple of reasons why. If you look at St. X top to bottom, there's no one player that just leaps off the stat page at you. They really are a team effort. They play excellent defense. A lot of teams, Newport found out. Newport played a great game against them. They play tremendous defense. They have the size that's needed. They're a very team-oriented player. Again, one of those teams where anybody could have the high game. Now, they have some that are better than others. But overall, this is a team that is head and shoulders above the competition. So a very front-loaded number 1 team. And I don't know who in the state is going to be capable of beating them. They're certainly going to get their chances in that 7th region tournament, which is usually a good tournament. But what also happens in the 7th region?
Chaos.
But the best team at the end usually comes out of there. Yeah. The team that everybody thought, hey, was this good, typically comes out of there. And every now and then you're going to see something. And I don't like the way the 7th region matches up against St. X this year. I think St. X is going to take that region and will be in the state tournament. And my early favorite, I'm not really taking a risk here, my early favorite for the state championship.
Well, I think in that case, when you're so good like that and everybody expects you to win, sometimes your biggest opponent is yourself, and letting that go to your head. But it doesn't sound like these guys, have done that so far this year with their record. And it doesn't sound like they'd be afraid of playing a big game, against a big competition,
Correct.
Playing on a big stage like Rupp Arena, So, yeah, I think they're probably the team to beat. I know Great Crossing, some people said at the beginning of the year they might have been the team. So, yeah, I mean, it's obviously it all depends on where you play, what your regional draw is. Sometimes you get great first-round games in the ninth in the
sometimes the best
tournament.
Games happen in that first round.
Sometimes the best games are on Wednesday and Thursday.
Which also begs the question, should they seed the state tournament? That's been talked about for years and not done yet. You're basically a blind draw.
We've never done it that way, and we can't have. But it's a valid point.
And it certainly would be interesting to see. Okay, so now we're going to shift focus back to the local teams because we know a lot of our hopeful watchers of a podcast. This is a unique experience for Brian and I.
This is my first time, man.
Yeah, first time here, and we're not young bucks anymore. But we're going to go over Region 9, what we're going to see in the tournament. We'll talk about some of the players. But before we really get into the region, the news of the day, and I think both of us found this out within the last 48 hours, the head coach of the number 1 team in Region 9, Tim Sullivan, what we know for sure, and there's not a lot we know for sure.
It's nothing, really.
Has been, well, that's true. To our knowledge, has been asked to resign at the end of the season along with his staff. From a post that his wife made, it was evident a meeting happened. He was told this, asked if it was something personal, was told it was not. But speculation says there was. Now, I won't get into a whole lot of that. What I do know is he was told it was about the culture of the team, which begs the question, Brian, and here's where I'm going to stand out, and the reason why. I have not met Sully personally, and he's well known as Sully to most people around him. I think he's been there 17
Yeah, he's been there a long time.
Long time. I don't know him personally. Everything from people I trust that I hear about Tim Sullivan is he is a top-notch character guy, an excellent basketball coach. So I'm just going to leave that there. So from people I trust, they say he's a great guy. He really is, and has just found a home. And all of this kind of probably started last year when there was a big rumor going around that Tim was going to leave Cooper at the end of the season and go coach at Conard. Don't know where all of that came from and how all that got started. I'm a firm believer where there's smoke, there's fire, so there was something to it. And don't know if that affected relationships. When you say something like the culture of a program, it comes to mind. What is it? A winning culture? Are we talking about? Is there something going on with players? And I have heard every pet theory. I have even heard players' names, some of which aren't even with Cooper, being mentioned. And again, can't validate any of that. So I really don't want to go public. You can check out for yourself. Check Bluegrass Preps as a whole list of opinions as to what's going on. What I do know from his wife's post is that Tim, at least for now, is interested in fighting this and is going to stand up for himself here. You never know how these things will play out, but imagine this. Cooper wins the 9th region and goes into the state tournament with a lame duck coach. It just boggles the mind. Your thoughts? Yeah, I wanted to get to you.
I think that, and I thought about it. I've thought about it a lot. I talked to some coaches today about the situation, and the couple that I talked to were very surprised by what's happened. And it's just, to me, it's a shame. And the one thing, I always think about the kids in the room, the players on that team and how it affects them, and the timing. Just all of this coming out is just the timing is
strange.
It's just odd, going into the 9th region tournament. But I think what's going to happen, and a couple things could really happen here. Number one, they rally and they come out and win the region and say, we're going to stick together. The guys in this room are going to rally, and we're going to come together for our coach, and we're going to do this, and we're going to play our tails off for him, and we're going to go out here and prove this. The other thing that could happen is this could be a distraction. You never know how 16, 17, 18-year-old kids are going to respond to what's happening, that noise, So I hope for their sake it's not a distraction. I hope for their sake, the kids from Cooper.
How could it not be?
Can be. Oh, I know, but you hope it. I hope it doesn't affect them how they play. And I know fans have talked about we're going to go and we're going to chant, we're going to do things at these games. I almost say for the sake of the kids on the court, I almost want to say don't. Let them just play the game. And then if you win, maybe at the end of the game, but don't do it while the game's going on. Let the focus be on the game.
The principal, a lot of people believe is for whatever reason at odds here, along with the AD, who happens to be the football coach. The principal is Wilson. His first name escapes me. I don't know if you know. Mentioned, apparently, according to Sullivan's wife, mentioned culture. And the first thing I thought about is that means absolutely nothing. Yeah. It's an umbrella term that covers a whole multitude of sins. You have no idea what that reference is. Now, Coach Sullivan might know what that's referencing. But it means nothing to say that. And to me, just as I don't have a dog in this fight.
No, I don't either.
As an observer, I think that's a bad look for the administration at this point. Now that the story has broken in so many ways, there's a petition even going around. Yeah. There apparently is a school board meeting coming up. But now that the story has broken, I think the administration, kind of looking like the bad guys here. And the idea of staying ahead of the story is gone now. Now people want answers, and it's going to come out one way or the other.
Right.
You hope it. The key to these things in the PR circles is to control the narrative, and the school and the administration has failed miserably at that so far. Now that's a fact. Whether or not we come out at the end and say, wow, they needed to do this is a possibility.
Yeah, we'll wait. But, I mean, you have till 1 o'clock Saturday afternoon, to kind of figure things out and to there won't be a conclusion before Saturday at 1 o'clock. But that's when you've got to have something as far as the coach and the players are concerned, because you're going to go out and play a Highlands team who would love nothing more than to beat you, and they're looking for any advantage they have. And their goal, their objective is obviously to win a 9th region tournament and go to the state tournament. I mean, the last couple of years they've come up a little bit short, and they really feel like this is their best opportunity that they've had in a while.
And by the way, if Tim Sullivan is by any chance catching this podcast at some point, we would absolutely love to have you even right here in the TBNK studio. We're curious. Much respect to Tim Sullivan and the job he has done from a basketball standpoint. Not a better coach in the state of Kentucky, in my opinion. So we'd love to have you. If you want to just talk basketball, we're happy to do that. But if you want to talk about this and you want to share any part of your story about it, we're open to that. That does lead us, though, to the preview of that first game. And you look at it, it's kind of the early game. It is Cooper, so the winners of the region taking on the Highlands Bluebirds. Now, you look at that Bluebird roster, Brian, it's got some interesting names on it. First, for Cooper, and I'll go over some of the stats, and I'll let you break it down for us. You've got, let's be honest, Andy Johnson, one of the top players in the state of Kentucky, averaging almost 24 points and 6 boards a game, has hit 58 three-pointers, shooting at a 38% clip. You also have Roman Combs, who's averaging in double digits, 10.6, 6 boards for him. As a team, they shoot nearly 50% from the field. They've shot 120, which is on the low end of three-pointers at 33%, but they do average about 4.8 per game. 70% free throw shooting team have outscored their opponents by a little over 11 points, averaging 63.2. Now, Highlands, you're going to recognize some of these names. They're led in scoring by Finn Bolden. He averages about 13 a game. He's hit 36 three-pointers at a 34% clip. Nathan Rickard, averaging 12 points and 5 boards. Tayden Lorenzen, see if that's a familiar name to you. Almost 12 points per game, almost 7 boards per game. And then, of course, one we know in his three-pointers, 23 of 56, by the way, for a big guy at 41%. How about Vincent Listerman? Coach's kid, and the Listermans were coach's kids. And Brian and I got to meet Andy and Kevin way back when they played for that Division II North team we talked about, and have watched them both be successful, have a successful athletic careers locally. And, of course, Highlands led by him and Vincent Listerman averaging about 11 points a game. 34 from 91 for 37%. And one I wanted to mention for Highlands because they're a prolific three-point shooting team. Owen Ebert comes in at almost 10 points a game. He's 53 for 163, 33% as a team, 215 three-pointers. They live and die literally by the three-point shot. 35%. They hit 7 of them a game. They shoot 46% as a team, so it's not hurt their overall shooting. Not a great free throw shooting team at 65%, and they have the highest average per game of any team on this list at 73 points a game, holding the opponents to about 65, which is one of the biggest defensive deficits, okay? So, I mean, you balance the good with the bad. They were the runner-up in the 36th district. How do you like them against Cooper?
Well, I think Cooper's going to be the favorite going into that game. I mean, they beat him earlier this year, 68-56. Andy Johnson for Cooper had 31 points that night. But I think this, and I know people say you can focus too much on what happened last year, but Cooper beat Highlands 81-46 in the 9th region tournament last year. Kevin Listerman's a heck of a coach, and he's And one of the things about both the Listerman kids is that, and I hate to say kids because I think of them as being kids, but they're competitors.
Yeah.
And he's going to have his guys ready to play, and they're going to want to try to come out and say, hey, we're not as bad as that score last year indicates, or maybe even earlier this year. Obviously, teams that live and die by the three. If you're hitting them, you can put a lot of pressure on, and I think if you're Highlands, the thing you want to do in this game is keep it close. If you can keep it close going into the fourth quarter, 7, 8, 9-point game, and put some game pressure on Cooper, especially with everything going on, you never know.
Now, this technically is a 1-8 type of matchup.
Yeah.
They were probably the lowest ranked team in the 9th region. Still had a pretty good record.
Yeah.
I mean, 18-12.
But I think ultimately, Cooper gets it. It's going to be closer, I think, than what it was last year. But I think Cooper gets him in the end by 12, 14 points.
It's the enemy, and I agree with Brian. I like Cooper in that game. The next game, every bit as interesting. We're going to look at the number 2 ranked team in the region, 11th in the state, and that is the Covington Catholic Colonels. Always fun to watch when you get to this time of year. It's going to be the Colonels taking on the Colonels, maybe against the surprise team of this 9th region because they finished so strong and had such a productive year. So first we'll look at Covington Catholic Athens McGillis, 21 points a game. He's hit 71 three-pointers at a 33% clip. That gets him among state leaders. Cash Harney, a player you and I have said many times we love his hustle, averaging about 16 points a game. Not a prolific three-point shooter, but hit 29 of them. You have Donovan Bradshaw averaging 13 points per game and 7 boards. So you've definitely got a front court. They shoot 48% as a team. 170 from 565 from beyond the arc for 30%. They hit about 5.5 a game. A 71% foul shooting team, averaging 68 points, opponents 56. Dixie was the 5th place team, so that really is the toughest first-round matchup for either of the top 2 seeds. Dixie was 21-9 this year, 9-7 in the region. Griffin Derry is their guy, averaging 16 a game, has hit 85 three-pointers, and what's more startling than that, puts him higher on the state list, he's hitting it at a 50% clip, maybe the best shooter in this region, one of the best shooters in the state.
Yeah.
Hunter Sang is 11-5, definitely a force underneath. This team shoots 53%, just at field goal, 53%. They're 182 of 421 for the highest percentage of 43% from beyond the arc. They hit 6 of them a game, a 72% foul shooting team. They average just under 60 points a game, keeping their opponents to 50, plus 10 there. This right here is the most interesting game coming up, and I really do like Dixie in this game, Brian.
Do you really?
This is one I'm going to go out on a limb. I think Dixie can pull the upset.
Well, I think it's there. I mean, it's one of those where it's the sexy pick, as they say in this case, because when you look at history, Covcath won 14 straight against Dixie. Last year, Covcath beat them 49-47 in the first round. So Dixie knows they can compete with them at this level. And Covcath won the last 4 times they played in the 9th region tournament. That being said, obviously Dixie comes out and shoots the ball like they've been shooting all year. Katie bar the door, who knows? I just think Covcath, I think they're tournament tested. They've got a lot to prove in this tournament, I think, as well, because they got humbled last year in this tournament, as we've already said. But I think in the end, Covcath's just a little bit too much for Dixie. Dixie's been an incredible story this year. Like you said, they've been the surprise team maybe of the region, but I'm going to take Covcath in a close one in this setup, the semifinal game with Cooper.
Yeah, you big chicken. All right. So Brian's got Covcath. We split on that one. Let's go to the other brackets. So those winners play each other. Okay. Let's go to the other side of the bracket, rather. We're going to have one of the most intriguing first-round matchups, period, because this, to some people, would be a pick-em. Now, you and I both have an idea, but Newport, the Wildcats, at 18-10, the team that represented the 9th region last year in the state tournament, after losing Kenny, their all-world guard who's playing in, I believe, Virginia now.
It's Atlanta. I was in it with Overtime Elite.
That's right, Overtime Elite.
Yeah.
Atlanta, it's not, yeah. Anyway, so they don't have him, obviously, against a Holy Cross team we see frequently during the year. Cannot say enough good about the job Ricardo Johnson has done at Holy Cross. He seems to take players that maybe were under the radar for a lot of people and turns them into cohesive basketball teams. Ricardo Johnson's going to be one of those young coaches that may have an opportunity to coach anywhere in the state or stay right there for a program that, let's be honest, will take care of you as a coach. So we almost kind of lean with Holy Cross a lot. I haven't had a chance this year to see Newport play in person. Newport led by, I have it here, James Turner, 15-8.
He's a beast.
It is a beast. We saw him last year, and he was very impressive. He is a force. Griffin Starks averaging 11 points and nearly 8 boards. So you got two front court players right there are tough. Starks can also shoot from the outside a little bit, 33% with 22 three-pointers. This is not a great three-point shooting team, so that's the one thing that hurts Newport. And, of course, you have to mention the former Cooper player, Yamil Rondon, and he's at 14.4 points a game. I didn't even list his three-pointers. He's way down on three-pointers this year. I said this comment once. I stand by it, but I've got a caveat. I think Yamil Rondon reminds me a lot of a young Rex Chapman in his style of play. Now, Rondon can't jump like Chapman had a 42-inch vertical or some nonsense. He was unbelievable. That's not Rondon, but he's got a lot of those tricky moves, loves the behind-the-back passes, has good court vision. There's some things to watch. He also gets in his own way a lot of times.
He does.
Now, on the court, we have seen this on the court. We've seen him get frustrated in games, and it affects his play. So you never know what you're going to get with Rondon. He could absolutely take a game over, and he could absolutely get lost in a game. As a team, Newport shoots 48%, only 112 three-pointers at a 31% clip, so they're only getting 4 a game. They're the worst foul-shooting team in this region at 62%. And they only average about 61 a game, but only allow opponents to get about 51, and they showed that against St. X. When they played St. X as tough as anybody has played St. X, and that's the far and away the best team I've already said. So, Newport, that's what gives me concern for Holy Cross. They're led by Brady Gabbard, 13 points per game. 39 three-pointers at 30%, one of the best shooters in the region at Luke Arlinghouse. He's only a 42% shooter when you compare it to some of the other ones we talked about at Dixie, but has hit 63 pointers on the year, and he hits them in the clutch. I mean, when you give him space, he knocks them down.
He doesn't miss.
Nate Rominger, the kind of player I love, 13 points, 8 boards. He is scrappy. He's a garbage man. And then Will McElhaney, who they have relied upon in the center, and he's come up big, 13 points, 9 boards. 45% shooting team from the field, 184 three-pointers at a 35% clip, not shabby, 6.6 per game, 71% foul shooting team, averages about 63 a game, giving up about 58. And despite all of that, I'm still going with Newport in this one, Brian.
I am too. I take the experience of Newport playing in these kind of games. Rondon, he knows what it's like to play against Newport. In the ninth region tournament. And so I just think the experience of Newport, I think Newport's probably a little more athletic than Holy Cross. Should be a good game. I think it'll be a good game because one of the other things about Holy Cross that's really interesting is you look at some of their wins. They beat Ryle. They beat Campbell County out of the 10th. They beat Simon Kenton and Walton out of the 8th.
Yeah.
And Walton's a good team we didn't even talk about. And they've beaten Highlands. But I still think Newport's going to just be too much for them in this game. Just experience playing in that building, playing in these big-type games.
Well, and let's be honest. There's one thing about Newport. They are very quick on defense. And I've watched Luke Arlinghouse. Now, he's not a slow set shot, but he also doesn't have a hair trigger release. He's going to have a tough time finding his shot in that game with bigger, more athletic guards guarding him. Now, that's not to say Holy Cross is not athletic. They are. but at every position, even if they're the same athleticism, they're a little shorter.
And I'm gonna give the coaching edge. I mean, Ricardo Johnson's done a great job this year at Holy Cross, but man, Rod Snap, he's done such a great job.
My neighbor, Rod
I know, your guy. And so I think the coaching advantage there is a little bit for Newport. I think Ricardo Johnson's going to be a heck of a coach.
He is,
and he's already a good coach. But I think that Rod Snap, again, that experience of being in this game. I just think this is Newport's game to win.
Rod just excels those teams, escalates them at tournament time. They become different teams, and I think you're going to see more of the St. X Newport than you're going to see some of the questionable losses they've had this year. And it took them a while to find their identity. Keep in mind, you lost your leading scorer from the year before and didn't expect to.
Well, and you add Rondon, who you've got to add to the mix. Correct. How does he fit into that too? I think there was a lot of things going on early in the year, but I think it's that time of the year. It's March, man, and Rod Snap knows what he's doing.
We may have to get, if you're listening out there, we may have to get you up here. Ricardo, you're invited.
Man, he's
a lot of guys we'd love to talk to. Rod's a great guy to talk to.
Rod's intense, man. He's a good guy. I like watching him coach.
All right, and then the final game in the bracket, and you're going to have the number 20th ranked team in the state and the Lloyd Juggernauts at 24-6, taking on probably the biggest mystery team in the 9th region, the Ryle Raiders, because Ryle at 16-12 at times looked like a 25-win team. At times they look like a 12-loss team. And it's, again, one of those situations, I don't know, and I never question a team's chemistry. We saw a game Ryle play earlier this season against an inferior opponent, and where Lorms, I think, scored, the first 17 points
it was
of the game
stupid.
by himself.
I mean, he was unbelievable.
And they were shutting out. And so I've seen what Lorms can do. And the way he takes over a game, he's a downhill player. Not got a bad three-point shot or anything, but kind of a downhill player. Let me tell you a little bit about Landon Lorms. Averaging 23 points a game, 6.4 boards. He's only hit 32 three-pointers. That's really not his game. Now, he's 32% from beyond the arc, but it really isn't his game. He is complemented very nicely, however, by Jonathan DeGroff. And, of course, we know Jonathan's parents really well. We went to school with them. Jonathan got to talk to him a little bit after a Holy Cross game. Really good kid.
He's sneaky athletic.
He really is. Quick leaper.
Oh, yeah.
Both defensively and offensively. I think he had 3 block shots, and the kid's got a
couple of dunks in that game.
Explosive dunks. Yeah. He's averaging nearly a double-double, so 12 points, 10 boards, basically, and is just a really great compliment for Lorms. And then you actually have Anthony Coppola. Now, most of the games I saw Ryle this year, Coppola wasn't a huge factor until the second game, and they had already had it won. But he does average 11 points per game, has hit 34 three-pointers, is also around 31%. Their best three-point shooter, however, is A.J. Davis. He's about 37%, averages 10 a game, and has hit 55 of them. 45% from the field is Ryle. 182 three-pointers. Again, nothing to sneeze at, 33%. They average 6.5 made threes a game. Their free throw percentage, I have no idea because I mistyped it. I think it's 70.5.
It seemed like they shot him well the night we saw them play.
They were right around that 70% mark. They averaged 62.7 points per game, giving up about 59.6, and that's really what it is. They've lost a lot of close games this year. And so, you don't know how exactly that is going to turn out. But you take a look at the other side of the equation, and now we get to talk about a Lloyd team who, frankly, could beat anybody in the state. But, you just don't know. Mike Walker, one of my favorite coaches in the region. If you've never gotten a chance, here's another guy I'd love to sit down with him. I tried to talk him into getting EJ over to Louisville. He wasn't having it. I got to admit, I was a little surprised at where he went. He ended up signing with South Carolina. E.J. Walker, one of the most exciting prospects next to Moreno in the state of Kentucky, averaging a double-double, 19 and 12. Now, he's not the prolific scorer right now. He's going to be a project at the next level at a major college, though. We knew he'd go to a major college. I don't know that he's going to be the impact freshman, but you watch his career unfold over the next few years in college. He could be a special player. He also has hit 36 three-pointers, oh, by the way, at a 46% clip. Not a bad outside shooter, and that's only going to get better as he gets into college. And when you're 6'8", that's what a weapon that is. We also, the one thing we've continued to say about E.J. Walker, there are times you just don't notice him on the floor, which is tough for a 6'8" kid. I would love to see him get more aggressive. We've been kind of watching since his early years because we've seen him a long time. He has definitely, as a coach's son, has some of the best footwork I've seen. They had to have Division I teams in college just foaming at the mouth.
Well, how many schools recruited him? I mean, it was a long list.
It really was. Soft touch around the rim, but sometimes, again, he just doesn't show up when you think he could take a game over. So we're interested to see how that progresses with him. The other guy, and this is a kid I have watched for 3 or 4 years as well, I've gotten to talk to his dad, Anthony Blaker, maybe the hardest working kid on that team. Constant motor, averages 15 points a game, and you talk about a downhill player. He is in attack mode all the time and a great defensive player. That's an exciting kid to watch. Really excited to see him getting some offers at the next level as well. They also have Jaden Humphrey at 10 points a game, and Carter Bresser is really their three-point guy. He's hit 44 of them for about 44%. So, again, that's a high total and a good three-point shooter. As a team, 53%. You could thank EJ for a lot of that, but 53% as a team. They've hit 146 three-pointers at a 44% clip, average about 5 made threes a game. So not the best three-point shooting team, but consistent with their percentage at 44. I'm sorry, at 31. And their free throws, I said that was the worst free throw shooting team at 60. This is 62%, so not a great free throw shooting team. They've averaged about 61 points a game, given up about 51. Lloyd going against Ryle. As much as I like Ryle, and I do like Ryle, I'm going with Mike Walker and Lloyd in the first round here.
Well, I'm going to start with who you started with, Ryle, because I think they're kind of like you said. They started 1-4, and then they finished 16-12. They have wins over Newport. Again, they beat Simon Kenton, who's the favorite in the 8th. They beat Campbell County. But yeah, I don't know. They're 6-7 against 9th region teams. Yeah. Lloyd 14-2 in the 9th region. Their only 2 losses were to Covcath at 71-67 and Cooper 63-59. So they can play with anybody. I'm gonna take Lloyd. Well, they've been to the semifinals 3 years in a row. Now, granted, they've lost all 3 times and haven't been in a final since 1996, which I think is crazy. They lost to Boone County. You think about where Boone County is today. And you go back and look at the 9th region, like they were a team that was predominantly really good.
They were the team coming.
And obviously now with Cooper and Ryle and all, things have changed. But yeah, I think I'm going to say Lloyd gets it done. Ryle has talent, and Ryle could beat them. But I go back to what I said a while back on this beginning of the show. I think it's put up or shut up time for Lloyd. And I think they're gonna win this game. And we'll talk about the semifinals in a minute against Newport. But I think this is the year they have to get it done. And we'll see.
All right, so let's move on. My semifinal round is going to look a little different than Brian's. We both had Cooper winning against Highlands. Both like Highlands, but we really do think that Cooper's the better team there. Here's where I went out on a limb and picked Dixie. I'm excited about Dixie this year. I do think they can win that game. I'm going to stop short of them beating Cooper. However, I got to believe Cooper will go through this side of the bracket and represent this side of the bracket in the finals. So I'm going with Cooper in the finals, and on the other side with Newport taking on Lloyd. What a fun game. You talk about some athletes in that game and some guys who play taller on Newport than they are, and a guy like E.J. Walker who does play that tall. And as much experience as Newport has, I think Lloyd is going to do it this year, albeit that's going to be a close game.
Well, I have Covcath in that semifinal game with Cooper. Covcath's only loss this year was to Cooper.
Yeah.
In overtime by 4. I think the game was at Cooper. Cooper embarrassed Covcath last year.
Yes, they did. So, in a shocker to everybody.
So you see where I'm going with this.
I do.
I'm going to go Covcath getting to the final because I think they're going to have something to prove. For Cooper, with everything going on, and it is hard to go undefeated in your region.
It makes sense, yeah.
I'm going to take Covcath to win that game. On the bottom of this, I'm going to go Lloyd just because I think this is the year E.J. Walker gets his team to the finals. I think they've been there 3 years in a row. They've lost. I don't know that he's played great. He's played well in a couple of them, but last year he did not. And I think this is the year they get to the championship game. And so I've got Covcath and Lloyd in the championship game.
All right, and since there are 2 different teams that we picked in the finals, let's look at the matchups either way. If I'm right and Cooper makes the final, and again, I like your logic on that a lot because we don't know what we're going to get out of Cooper with all this going on, and I'm sorry, it does affect the team. You can't help but affect the team. But let's assume it's Cooper for the time being playing Lloyd. This is the kind of team, to me, that Cooper beats.
Yes, I would agree.
Their discipline, their steady shooting, and their defense. This is a team I can see Cooper beating. And I think Cooper represents the 9th region in state if they can get through the emotional stuff. Yet I completely understand your pick. And if it happened to be Covcath against Lloyd, I got a little more faith in Lloyd there. I really do. I might give the edge to Lloyd in that game.
All right, so if you're right, I would take Cooper because I think Cooper's been to the finals the last 2 years, especially not as much last year, but the year before.
Right.
I mean, got so close, so close. And I would probably take Cooper over Lloyd just because I think they're a little deeper defensively. Covcath, Lloyd, I like Covcath.
And that's fair, too.
I like Covcath in that game. I think Covcath goes on to represent the 9th region. I mean, it would be a great game because and Covcath only beat him by 4 earlier in the year.
And by the way, Covcath has played some of the best teams around the country, too, so they are a battle-tested team.
And that's kind of where I'm going with this a little bit. I mean, no offense to Lloyd. I would love to see E.J. Walker get an opportunity to go play in Rupp Arena. Because the next time he comes into Rupp with South Carolina, he's going to get booed. So, I mean, it'd be nice for him.
In the world of college basketball, he may end up playing for Kentucky.
Yeah, you never know.
Years, so.
But I'm going to go Covcath over Lloyd in the championship game, and the Colonels going to the 9th region representing the 9th region.
So very interesting. I in my first choice would have Cooper. Brian would have the Colonels, and of course that's going to be one of the most intriguing things to watch in the 9th region. Now for our final segment, we'll kind of go over some of the different regions, what we can see happening. We'll also hit with the 8th and 10th, but we're going to start right at the first region. So basically your first region comes up. We're not going to really try to pick all of these, Brian, because you and I would be guessing in a lot of cases. The first region opens up with Paducah-Tillman, the Blue Tornado at 16-11, taking on a 9-13 Fulton County team, basically giving Marshall County a seat in the finals if they can get past a 19-9 Graves County. Marshall, of course, like we said, I think the number 5 ranked team in the state, so you got to like Marshall in that side. You have Carlisle County and Mayfield in the other side of the bracket. Carlisle County, another sub-500 team, 14-16. Mayfield, a huge school in the western part of the state that is always tough, 20-9. And then you have maybe the most interesting game of the first region, Callaway County, the Lakers at 28-3, number 6 in the state, taking on a very good St. Mary Vikings team at 23-8. So again, that's a tough first-round game for Callaway County, a tough first-round game for Marshall. They're on opposite sides of the bracket. But winning the first game is going to be a challenge. I think both those teams come through in the second. I'd like to see that matchup in the final.
Yeah, I think it'll be Marshall and Callaway in the championship game. And I haven't seen them play to know who wins that game, but Marshall or Callaway, one of those two, is probably going to come out of that region.
All right, so we like that. Region 2, the first game will be Madisonville, North Hopkins, the Maroons. That's one of my favorite names out there at 15-12, taking on Livingston Central and the Cardinals, shocking everybody to win runner-up in their district at 9-20. And it only gets a little more interesting from there. We're going to have the Christian County Colonels, who only won 8 games, 8-22. They'll be taking on the Union County Braves at 15-10. Out of all 4 of those teams, I kind of like Madisonville on that side of the bracket. I don't kind of like them. I like them a lot. Madisonville, a very, this is a traditional program in the state of Kentucky. Despite their record, still will be pretty tough. Now, the favorite comes on the other side. You'll have the Henderson County Colonels. Henderson County breaks into our top 25. They're 22-6. They open up against a 500 Hopkinsville Tigers. And the other game, the late game, will be the Lyon County Lions. They were a team that got some notoriety last year for Travis Perry, playing with UK right now, but they are still 24-7 with some of the remnants of that state tournament team. Dawson Springs, the Panthers is who they play at 7-15. I still like Henderson County to come out of Region 2.
Henderson County only 1 loss in the region, and that was to Lyon County. So that's an interesting matchup. Madisonville North Hopkins only had 2 losses in the region. One of those was to Lyon County, and the other was to Dawson Springs. That's a very competitive region, and it's an important region because the winner of that region is going to who plays the 9th region,
right,
in the state tournament. So, that's a toss up. I'm going to go out on a limb and I'll take Madisonville North Hopkins in that.
Interesting.
Henderson lost to Madisonville North Hopkins. That was the only team they lost to all year. Those two meet in the finals. I think Madisonville North Hopkins gets revenge.
Madisonville also plays a little more out in the state, and sometimes that's a big advantage.
Well, they were only 15-12 but lost only 2 games in the region. So,
All right, now we go into Region 3, and this covers a lot of the Owensboro schools. And you're going to start off with Davies County and the Panthers at 22-6, the odds-on favorite as they play not the Butler Bears, the Butler County Bears at 17-14.
I didn't even know there was a Butler County. I'm not going to lie.
That's a new one on me. That's a new one. The other bracket, or the other on that side, is Muhlenberg County, the Mustangs at 16-10, taking on the Breckenridge County Fighting Tigers at 18-8. I do like Davies County to come out of that side. On the other side of the bracket, the Grayson County Cougars, get this, 24-6, play a traditionally tough Owensboro Catholic Aces team at 19-10. At 19-10, the Aces may be better than anybody in that region, and I like them to beat Grayson County. And the other game, it's Meade County and the Green Wave at 17-9, taking on McLean County. The Cougars at 16-11. I think it's going to be Grayson and Davies, but I do like Davies County to come out of that with the win in Region 3.
Those are the kind of regions that are fun when there's, nobody in that region is ranked in the top 25.
And it's a dogfight.
And it's a dogfight. You just never know. Guys, I couldn't even venture a guess on that one necessarily. But, yeah, I think those are some of the most exciting regions because nobody, unless you know that region, you feel like 4 teams have a shot.
Correct.
And that's not always true when you go into regional play.
Correct. All right. Region 4, Brian, will feature in the first game a 19-12 Barron County Trojans team taking on a 23-6, number 13th ranked Warren Central Dragons. And I really like the Dragons in that first-round matchup. But on the same side of the bracket, we talked about this because there's really 3 teams who are very good. You have the 17th-ranked Clinton County Bulldogs at 28-2, taking on the Logan County Cougars at 19-13. And this is a pick 'em, in my opinion. I'm going to go with the tradition of Warren Central. I like Warren Central to come out of that side and pull the upset on Clinton County, even though they only had 2 losses. That was one of them, I believe. And I do like Warren Central. On the other side, you have the Franklin Simpson Wildcats at 11-13, taking on the Russell County Lakers at 17-11. And then the final game features another team we like a lot, the Bowling Green Purples, taking on, this is one that shocked me. I believe they were a runner-up in the district at 5-22, the Glasgow Scotties. That's not the name. I did not know the name of that team. I'll confess.
I did
Glasgow, not. Now we do, and then we'll never forget it. I don't like Glasgow in that game. I do
really.
I do see it being between Bowling Green and Warren Central. And Brian, I'm going to go out on a limb and say Bowling Green. The Aces seem to play their best ball.
Well, I think Warren Central and Clinton County beat the snot out of each other in the semifinals, and it opens up Bowling Green to win in the final. Give me the Purples.
The Purples. Region 5, Bardstown area. Bardstown Tigers at 17-9, coached by James Boo Brewer. Will take on Caverna and the Colonels. Caverna, always an interesting team, but 16-12, struggled this year. And then in the other game in that bracket, you're going to see the Adair County Indians at 27-5 taking on the Central Hardin Bruins. I do like Adair County in the first game against a 19-10 Central Hardin. It's going to be a little tougher against Bardstown. I think I'm going to go with Adair County. I'm really picking out of the clear blue sky here. But I like their record. I like what they've done, so I am going to go with Adair County on that side. The first of the 2 games in the other half of the bracket, North Hardin Trojans against the Bethlehem Eagles. Bethlehem's had some good teams, only 16-13 this year. North Hardin at 19-9, a traditional powerhouse like North Hardin in that game. And then the game of that 5th region happens in the first round. You have the Taylor County Cardinals at 23-6 against the Greene County Dragons. Is it going to be the year of the Dragons? 23-3, 10th in the state. I'm going all the way with Greene County representing the 5th region.
Well, I think it'll be Greene or Adair just because they're both ranked. But I'll go with you on Greene County. Get it out of that first round matchup with Taylor County, and I think they're the team. They would be the team to beat in the 5th.
Okay, this one has an interesting dark horse we'll get to in the 6th region. So this is the first of 2 Louisville regions. You have Pleasure Ridge Park taking on the North Bullitt Eagles at 19-12, PRP 23-4. I think they handle North Bullitt. The second game is the Butler Bears at 24-4 against the Fern Creek Tigers, a little down this year at 16-4. I like Butler both in that game and beating Pleasure Ridge Park. I think Butler wins that side of the bracket. On the other side, a traditional powerhouse, and the Moore Mustangs at 18-10 take on the Western Warriors, another team kind of lucky to be in that position at 7-17. I do like Moore in that. And then here's the team that I think is the dark horse of this entire region, and they can mess it up for everybody. And this is going to be my first shocker pick because I'm going to have them beating a 21-10 Fairdale. That's the Jeffersontown Chargers, good old J-Town. They're 23-6. And I'm going to have them pull the upset over Butler Bears. Very sorry, Ken Ford, my good buddy, who's alma mater is Butler. But I'm going to pick the shocker there in J-Town coming out of the 6th region.
Well, it's, again, one of those situations. This PRP and Butler beat each other up in a semifinal game, perhaps, to where J-Town is maybe a little more rested and can be ready to go. I'll take the winner of the PRP-Butler game to win that region.
Okay, so moving on to the 7th region, near and dear to my heart. We're going to start off with one of the most intriguing teams in the region against a team that I would not have wanted to draw first. So it's going to be the greatest and oldest rivalry, maybe not the greatest, the oldest rivalry not only in the state of Kentucky, from my understanding, the oldest rivalry football-wise anyway, in the entire country. And that is the male Manual rivalry. And DuPont Manual and the Crimsons come in at 25-5, a rare favorite over the male Bulldogs at 17-11. Don't forget, it's a battle-tested male team that can still shoot the rock. There's still some Edelins left on that team. They can still shoot the rock. I like Manual, but boy, I would hate to have to play Male in the first round. The other side, or on that same side of the bracket, for having the kind of talent they have, Trinity only managed a 15-14 record. They take on the Christian Academy Centurions at 13-15. I like Trinity and Manual. I like Manual representing that half. And like I said, their toughest challenge is going to be Male in that first round. On the other side, you have an Atherton Ravens team at 15-10 and the Ballard Bruins at 19-10, 24th ranked. I do like Ballard in that game, but the next game is a laugher. Central Yellow Jackets at 9-20, and I think St. X can cakewalk in this game. That would be the biggest upset in state tournament history. 28-2 Tigers beat Central, and I think they have no problem with Ballard. And I think they have no problem representing the 7th region in the state.
Yeah, I think the DuPont Manual Male winner will play in the final against St. X, and I don't think it matters. I think St. X wins that game and goes on.
In the 8th region, and boy, I'm all over the place in the 8th region here. Okay, let me get it back up. All right. I have in the very first game, this is where it really starts getting interesting. North Oldham and the Mustangs at 20-7 take on what turned out to be a pretty good Gallatin County team at 19-11. Don't turn your back on Gallatin County.
I've seen them a couple times this year.
You've seen them.
I have.
And I don't like them against North Oldham, but an interesting game. Then we have the Battle of Bearcats. You're going to have the Anderson County Bearcats at 15-12 taking on a local team, the Walton Verona Bearcats at 20-12. I think Walton Verona has no problem in that game.
Anderson's one of those teams, though. They won their district. I think that'll be a really good game, though. I think the Aaron Gutman plays really well in that one, and I think that was the best draw for Walton, being a region or district loser. I think they got the best draw that they could have hoped for, with the exception of maybe Henry County. But yeah, I think Walton could win that game.
I'm still going with North Oldham on that side. The other side has our very own Simon Kenton Pioneers, 24-6, taking on the South Oldham Dragons, 26-5. An unfortunate draw for the 19th ranked team in the state to have to play Simon Kenton. But Brian, I honestly know enough about Simon Kenton, having seen them play. I really do like them in this game to pull the upset. And they will play the winner of Henry County and Spencer County, the Bears versus the Wildcats. Henry County at 18-11, Spencer County at 19-10. I think either one of those teams would lose. I'm liking North Oldham and Simon Kenton, and I'm calling it Simon Kenton representing the 8th region. You don't like that, though, Brian. I'm getting the impression you don't like that.
I don't know. I mean, the two teams played earlier. North Oldham beat Simon Kenton.
They did.
But it was way back at the beginning of the year, so it's hard to say. I know that I teach at Owen County High School, and I know that our coach, Devin Duvall, he thinks this is the year that Trent Steiner gets it. So he likes.
He would agree with me.
He would agree with you. You know what? I'll go with SK. I will say this about, you mentioned the Gallatin County team. They just had a kid from their school over the weekend tragically got killed in a car accident. He was a senior football player. And so, I feel my heart goes out to them and those kids on the basketball team. That's got to be tough to go out and play a game after,
not a huge school either. This is a school everybody knows.
And Henry County, again, Spencer County, just going to throw this out there. Seen Henry a couple times. Henry beat Owen County in the district tournament. It's a big deal for Henry County to play the regional tournament on their home floor. And I say Henry beat Spencer in the first round. And Henry plays pretty good D. I think they can give Simon Kenton a little bit just for a few minutes. And they're not going to beat him. But it's a big deal for Henry to play on their home floor. And if you've never been to Henry County High School, you gotta get down there. It's awesome.
All right. So now we hit another local region of sorts. The 10th region's going to start out with the Montgomery County Indians at 19-10, one of the favorites to play the Harrison County Thoroughbreds at 13-15. Glad to be there. I like Montgomery County there. There's the traditional in the next matchup, the Mason County Royals against Bishop Brossart. Mason County 16-13. Our local team, the Mustangs, 15-15. I'm saying Bishop Brossart pulls off the upset. Then we'll lose to Montgomery County.
I could see Bishop Brossart. I could see them winning that game. That tournament has been played at Mason County for a long time. And so I think that always kind of gave them an advantage. But Mason County basketball the last few years has not been what it has been. The Royals this year especially. I'd take Brossart in that game. That could be a pretty good first-round game.
Other side of that, the Blue Jackets of Nicholas County at 20-11 take a team who, frankly, hasn't made it to the regional in a while. I believe in the Augusta Panthers at 18-10, and most people will know Augusta is the place that George Clooney went to high school and grew up.
It's an awesome gym. If you've never
Great
been
gym.
to a game at Augusta, you got to go there too. I think it was built in the 1920s. It is awesome. The upper deck, you feel like you're hanging over the court. It is a cool place to watch a game.
Now, we're going to put a pin on that one because I don't think either one of those teams will defeat the winner of the next game, which is George Rogers Clark, 15th ranked team in the state against Campbell County. And Brian and I get the benefit of seeing these teams that are kind of in our local area. And Campbell County certainly is a northern Kentucky team. Campbell County's good, as they are most years. Campbell County is a good team. Haven't seen George Rogers Clark. I have a tough time doing this. I'm going to go with my heart a little bit and pick the Camels. This is Brian Blair's alma mater. Are you picking against the Camels, Brian?
I am. I think George Rogers Clark is going to get them.
Team.
They're a good team. Their only loss in the region all year was to Montgomery County. And I'll give you my pick. I think Montgomery County, because they're at home, is going to win, would beat George Rogers Clark in the final. Although some people think Campbell County could be the dark horse to come out of that region. And, Campbell County football has not been good the last few years. But their basketball team has been really good. And I think the 10th region's been awesome for them. No offense to them, and they could still compete in the 9th. But that's been a pretty good move for them. You think back a few years ago, they took Trinity everything they wanted in the state semifinals and had a shot to win it. But all that being said, I'm still picking against them.
All right, now, the best region we have out there, the 11th region. Keep in mind, in the state of Kentucky, those that do not know, 16 regions. So we will cover through 16, and then we'll end this long first podcast. But you want to know, who's going to represent the different regions. This is the region right here. The 11th region has 3 top 5 teams. The very first games, except for one, are going to be pretty predictable.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to like the Great Crossing Warhawks at 28-4 over a very down Lexington Christian Eagles team at 15-17. Lexington Christian has some tradition. They're not going to beat Great Crossing, let's be honest. Then you have the 4th-ranked team in the state, the Bryan Station Defenders, taking on a little bit of an upstart team, the Berea Pirates, at 14-16. This is going to be a cakewalk for these two teams. They will face each other in the semifinal. Other side of the bracket. These two games a little bit this game's right with those two. You got the Lexington Catholic Knights. They're not ranked at 22-9. Not really a favorite here, but they will beat the Western Hills Wolverines at 10-20. So they're going to be waiting for what is the best matchup in the first round of this tournament for the 11th region, and that is Madison Central, the Indians, 20-11. Madison Central has a great history in their program. They're taking on Frederick Douglass, who may quietly be the best team in the 11th region. At 23-4, they get the worst draw of the region. I like Frederick Douglass, let's be honest. I think they're going to make it, and once they do, they will be in the final. And, boy, it's Great Crossing in Bryan Station, but I love it. Great Crossing, Frederick Douglass. I like Frederick Douglass.
It's funny. I do, too.
In the state tournament.
I'm going to take Frederick Douglass. I think
I'm worried because Malachi Moreno playing in state just seems like it fits.
It does, but sometimes the best players don't always get to that point. I think it would be great if he did, just to get to play on that floor and let people get to see him and get that exposure. But let's be honest, he's had a lot of exposure. Yeah, I'll take Frederick Douglass. I think if you're playing Great Crossing and Malachi Moreno, all the pressure's on Greg Crossing.
Yeah.
And I think Frederick Douglass gets it done.
All right, Region 12 and 13. These are regions I know very little about, so I'm going to be doing some guessing here. We open up Region 12, the first game, the Pulaski County Maroons at 18-10, and what is expected to be a good contest against the Lincoln County Patriots at 18-12. It's a pick-em. I had Pulaski County. They were one of the top teams in the region at the end of the season. In the second game, the Mercer County Titans at 21-10 take on the Wayne County Cardinals, a 500 team. I think Mercer County gets the pick on that side of the bracket. In the first game on the other side of the bracket, the Southwestern Warriors finally in a position to be able to win a game here in the regional tournament at 17-13, and what could be the best game of this first round of the regional. They play the West Jasmine Colts at 17-9. I like the Colts there. The Danville Christian Warriors at 26-3, ninth ranked in the state. They're going to beat Somerset. The Briar Jumpers, the best name in the state of Kentucky.
Without question, it's the best.
15-13, the Briar Jumpers will lose. Danville will win the 12th region. Brian?
You know what? I'm going to go on the other side. You said Mercer County on the other side. I just want to be different.
There you go.
I'll take Mercer County. I think Danville Christian, obviously they've been tested again. They won the A, but you just don't know. And I know they're top. I think
most people won't remember who we picked, although I guess it will be out
Nobody's writing it down.
I'm going to claim I'm right.
Oh, that's fine. So I'll take Mercer County just to be different.
Be a contrarian.
Yes.
All right. Region 13 is another one I know very little about. The Harlan County Black Bears, not the Bears, the Black Bears of Harlan County. At 24-8, take on a.
There are brown bears and there's polar bears,
and one of them is you don't feed one. You do. I don't know. There's an old saying.
I don't know.
There are Brian. There are polar bears.
And Bracken County, as a matter of fact. Yes. So
all right. The North Laurel Jaguars. North Laurel, a traditional program. They're playing the Corbin Red Hounds. Don't let the equal records of 19-10 fool you. I like North Laurel to win that game, but I like Harlan County on that side. Harlan County was nearly in the top 25, 24-8. They're going to have a tough first-round game against Knox Central, but this may be the year Harlan County gets to play in that 13th Region Championship. The other side of the bracket has a very good South Laurel team playing the Bell County Bobcats. And don't think for a second that's an easy game. South Laurel at 23-8, Bell County at 26-6. You kind of think South Laurel may be the better team, but I'm going to tell you Bell County was right there on the cusp of the top 25 too. That is going to be a ball game. I'm going to go with South Laurel, but only because I like the ranking. Brian, I can't think of another reason. Pineville Mountain Lions take on the Clay County Tigers. I'm going with the Manchester Clay County Tigers to play South Laurel. I'm going with South Laurel and Harlan. I'm going with Harlan representing the Cinderella story of Region 13.
Well, the only thing I know about Region 13 is that if you get off the exit to go to Corbin High School, there's an awesome Sonny's barbecue right there.
There is.
And that's the only thing. And
We've been there many times.
I know that the city of Pineville has a rock chained to the top of the mountain.
Chain Rock, Brian.
I know.
It's called Chain Rock.
So that chain protects.
They also have a nice golf course.
It does. Wasiata wins. But that being said, that's all I know about the 13th region. I'm just going to take Harlan County because they received votes for the top 25.
All right.
And some barbecue sauce on the side.
Region 14, and let's be honest, we don't know a lot about this region either. In fact, there is only one ranked team. I'm clearly going to go with them to represent the region. The first game is the Breathitt County Bobcats taking on the Perry County Central Commodores. 16-11 Commodores like Breathitt County in that. The Jenkins Cavaliers. Jenkins has showed up this year at a 26-4 record. They're another team that probably had some consideration in the top 25, despite the fact they really didn't have a heavy schedule. They'll play a 16-11 Powell County Pirates. I like Jenkins in both of those games. Jenkins represents that side of the bracket. Estill County Engineers, 14-15, take on the unoriginally named Wolfe County Wolves at 12-16, and that's a who cares kind of game. I'm going to go with the Engineers playing Hazard, who will beat the Bulldogs, will beat the Knott County Central Patriots. That's a long name. The Knott County Central Patriots at 19-11. Don't be fooled by the long name. They're a good team, but Hazard's another one of those teams that I really like at 7, and they will win the region.
Okay, longer name, Madisonville North Hopkins.
That's true.
But Richard Marx wrote a song called Hazard. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I didn't.
Now you do.
I said because I wanted to sound smart, but no, I didn't know.
And so I'm gonna go with Hazard. It's their year to win the 14th.
Okay, we're already in the semifinal round in Region 15. It's the one region that has less teams.
It's the super region.
It's what they call the super region.
Yeah, it's interesting how they do it. And I know we've talked a long time tonight, but it isn't. And I'll be curious to see if other regions don't maybe adopt something like that. We'll see.
And so what's transpired on the first side of the bracket, Pike County Central had the bye, the Pike County Central Hawks. Paintsville played Prestonburg and beat them 68-54. So it'll be a 19-8 Paintsville Tigers against the Pike County Central Hawks. Now, I would have thought Paintsville would have had the bye. I think they were the best team in that region. I like them against Pike County. Don't know how all that transpired, but there it is. On the other side of the bracket, at 16-8, it was Pikeville that had the bye. So Pike County Central, the Hawks, and the Pikeville Panthers had byes.
Say that faster.
Wow.
Pikeville, Pike County.
Lawrence County, the Bulldogs defeated Johnson Central, who we know to be a very good football team, but defeated them in a very high-scoring game, 94-82, so they will take on Pikeville. I like Paintsville playing Pikeville, and once again, John Pelfrey's alma mater of Paintsville High School will represent the 15th region.
Of course, thinking about those folks, they've dealt with a lot of flooding the last couple of weeks down in that area. Pikeville got hit really hard with the flooding. So, I will I mean, that is a crazy region to try to read the bracket. I mean, you need an abacus or something to figure that out. But, yeah, it is I'll go Paintsville just because I'm a Kentucky fan and I like John Pelfrey.
There you
Although,
go.
They should have fouled Christian Leitner.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We won't get into it. Most people don't. You realize a good part of our audience won't know who Christian Leitner is.
That's sad.
If you watch the show Paradise, by the way, that's I think streaming on
Hulu.
The president went to UK, is a Kentucky native, and went to UK. His code name?
Leitner?
No. The president's code name. They wouldn't name the president.
Well,
Wildcat.
Wildcat.
Now, the code for an emergency with the president, Christian Leitner.
Christian Leitner. Yeah, because we hate Christian Leitner.
Little inside trivia.
I actually want to watch that show.
Good show, by the way. I'm all caught up.
All right.
So finally, we're going to get to the last and final region and thankfully wrap this up, as I'm sure you're probably tired of hearing us talk. Region 16, the Morgan County Cougars against the Russell Red Devils. It doesn't really matter because the winner of that will play the winner of the Fleming County Panthers. Jennifer Rowe, our good friend, graduate of Fleming County, 21-10, but they take on a very good Boyd County Lions team at 21-11. I do like Boyd County in that game on that side of the bracket. And then you have Ashland Blazer, the Tomcats, taking on the Elliott County Lions. Not a bad team, 18-7, 20-7 for Ashland. They'll win that. Then it's the Raceland Rams at 22-8, who could upset a lot of people. They will play the Rowan County Vikings at 15-14. It'll be Raceland and Ashland Blazer. I like Ashland Blazer to represent the 16th region, but I love Raceland. That's a team that's kind of the dark horse in that region.
First of all, do you think that the pregame coach gets the pregame talk? His fellas, we're going to go play, but it doesn't matter because we're going to get smoked in the semis.
Well, I'm really hoping that not a lot of people in Morgan County and Russell, Kentucky are going to watch the podcast. If so, I may get a few death threats.
I mean, that is the classic.
But no, I don't think that's going to
think. No. All right, fellas, let's go get him. This is your only chance to win because tomorrow night you're going to get crushed. I'll take whoever you said in that. I know they play that tournament at Morehead State University. I know that's where they play that. I'll take Raceland just because it's fun to say.
All right, so you'll have to check us because I think the next time Brian and I are going to be in, we'll get to talk about the Sweet 16, which will be even more interesting. There will be some surprises. There always are, and it's very fun to look at the matchups in the Sweet 16. Real quick, I'll just tell you about some of the players you can watch out for in these tournaments. Obviously, there's Malachi Moreno. Don't forget about Xander Carter, who hasn't decided where he's going, a 6'6" combo guard for Ashland Blazer. Of course, E.J. Walker going to South Carolina. Maddox Huff, one of the best shooters in the state of Kentucky with Harlan County, a 6'3" guard going to East Tennessee State. And how about Vince Dawson at Great Crossing? This is why they're as good as they are. 6'6" combo headed to Morehead State. Armello Boone with Woodford County headed to Western Kentucky. Keyshawn Jordan with Male is actually one a lot of people are talking about at 6'8". Andy Johnson with Cooper. Chance Dillingham is a 5'9" point guard who has got some skill. Think of some Covcath point guards in the past, and that'll remind you of him. And then you have some young players. Austin Sears at North Oldham, the class of 28. Josh Lindsay at St. X. Cole Edelin, one of the best shooters when he gets going at Male High School, class of 26. Trinity had Jaden Johnson, who a lot of Division I schools are looking at. Amari Owens with Bryan Station, class of 26. DeMarcus Sumont with Frederick Douglass. And Jordan Mabe with South Laurel, some of those players to watch out for in this tournament.
Don't want to forget about the 9th Region girls. Their semifinal is going to be going on tomorrow night. Dixie Cooper, Highlands Notre Dame. Cooper
Pick it, Brian.
Cooper's team to beat. I think they've won 3 in a row. They're the team to beat. I'll take Cooper over Dixie. I'll take Notre Dame over Highlands. Cooper gets Notre Dame. Although the only loss Highlands had this year in the region was to Cooper. But I'll take Notre Dame in that game. Notre Dame trying to get to a championship game for the first time in a long time.
What about Jeff Stowers? Back to coaching the Simon Kenton Lady Pioneers in Region 8.
They're playing right now. They're taking on Trimble County, and that'll be a cakewalk. They'll blow.
We saw them dominate a game late in the season. This is a team who could win a state championship.
They're gonna play Trimble County tonight. Probably have already won. They'll get the winner of Anderson Oldham, which will be Anderson because Oldham's terrible. Grant County and South Oldham both won last night. South Oldham will probably beat Grant. So it'll be SK South Oldham in the final, and I'll take SK. Campbell County girls in action also. They got George Rogers Clark first round. Take George Rogers Clark in that game to beat the Lady Camels.
Well, that's it. This is our first podcast. We are glad you tuned in. We're going to try to shape and evolve this thing, maybe even get it to an hour at some point, and hopefully be able to have some guests. We're going to play around with some things, but again, we've got topics coming up because, again, I think Brian and I are going to try to get together here again after we know who's in the Sweet 16, the regional tournaments. I think most of them will be done by early next week. Correct?
Yeah, but then there's a break between the tournament. There's a long break. Yeah.
Well, and I think this year the women go first, and so that ends up being a little faster. But we'll get to talk and break down the Sweet 16, which will be fun. Around that time, it'll be March Madness. Who knows? Maybe Brian and I will throw in a little gift. By the way, Brian, Louisville is now ranked higher than Kentucky.
Ooh, man, the Cats need it tonight against LSU.
Big game against LSU.
I mean,
I will be in the Yum Center tomorrow night as Louisville takes on California.
Yeah, to the typical ACC matchup between
in the Atlantic
Coast against a team from the Pacific Coast. So yeah, college basketball's nuts.
All right, for Brian Blair, this is Scott Borders saying so long from Covington. We'll see you soon.